I'll never forget the day I stumbled slightly on my porch steps and felt a jolt of fear, not because I fell hard, but because I realized just how fragile my bones had become. The doctor later told me something I'll never forget. Bone loss doesn't happen overnight, but strong bones don't either. It's a daily choice, and it starts with what's on your plate. That day changed everything. I started paying attention not just to calcium, but to bone-building foods most people over 60 aren't even eating. And let me tell you, once I made these 5 foods part of my daily life, I felt stronger, steadier, and more confident on my feet. In this video, I'll share the top 5 foods that helped me strengthen my aging bones naturally, based on real science and my personal experience. No gimmicks, no guesswork. The food that brought back my strength. I never thought much about my bones when I was younger. They were just there holding me up, getting me from place to place, letting me garden, clean, dance, and do all the small things we take for granted. But that all changed in my early 60s when I started noticing little things. Stiffness in the morning, a dull ache in my hips after sitting too long, a small stumble in the backyard that left me sore for days. Still, I brushed it off. Just aging, I told myself, part of the package. Then, during a routine checkup, my doctor looked at me and said, "Your bone density has dropped more than we expected. If you're not careful, you could be facing a serious fracture within the next few years." That hit hard. I thought about my independence, my ability to walk without assistance, to live in my own home, and suddenly, bone health became personal. I asked him what I could do, and while he recommended weight-bearing, exercise, and vitamin D, he also said something that stuck with me. Your bones respond to what you eat, and right now, they need better building blocks. That was the day I started looking at food not just as fuel, but as medicine for my bones. Discovering the most overlooked bone-strengthening food, I began researching obsessively. I read books, watched interviews with geriatric nutritionists, and started going through my pantry with a new eye. Most of the information talked about calcium, of course, milk, yogurt, and cheese. But my digestion had grown more sensitive over the years, and I found dairy often left me bloated. That's when I stumbled upon a little-known gem that most people ignore. Sardines. Yes, sardines. Now, I know what you might be thinking. They're salty, smelly, and stuck in a can. That's exactly what I thought too. But what I didn't know is that sardines are one of the most calcium-dense foods you can eat, especially when you eat the bones, which are so soft. They practically melt in your mouth. And they don't just contain calcium. Sardines are rich in vitamin D, which helps the body absorb calcium efficiently, omega-3 fatty acids, which reduce inflammation in bones and joints, phosphorus, another critical mineral for bone health, protein, which makes up about 50% of your bone structure, a complete bone-building package, straight from nature. How I started eating sardines without feeling grossed out at first. I had my doubts. I hadn't eaten sardines since I was a child, and even then I wasn't a fan, but I was determined to do everything I could to protect my independence, so I experimented. Here's how I eased them into my diet. I mashed them up with avocado and a squeeze of lemon. Spread on whole grain toast, I mixed them with chopped tomatoes, red onion, and a drizzle of olive oil. Like a Mediterranean salad, I tossed them into a warm quinoa bowl with roasted vegetables, and on lazier days, I simply ate them on whole grain crackers with a little mustard and D-land. You know what? I grew to enjoy them. My taste buds adjusted, and I began to appreciate the salty richness, especially once I saw the benefits. The results I felt and saw within months, about 3 months after I started eating sardines regularly, just 2 to 3 times a week. Something surprising happened. I noticed I was waking up with less stiffness in my hips and lower back. My nails, which had always been brittle, were growing stronger and faster. I could carry heavier grocery bags without that deep soreness in my arms. My balance improved, and I felt more stable on stairs. But what really confirmed the power of this change was my next bone density scan. While the results weren't a complete reversal, my doctor smiled and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Your bone loss has slowed significantly." That was all I needed to hear. I knew I was on the right path. Why seniors need more than just calcium pills before I discovered sardines. I used to take calcium supplements every day, but here's what I learned from my research, and Dr. Calcium pills don't work as well if you're not getting the nutrients that help your body absorb and use it. It's not just about the calcium, it's about the team of nutrients. Vitamin D to absorb, calcium, vitamin K2 to direct calcium into the bones instead of the arteries, magnesium to help with bone structure, omega-3s south to reduce bone loss from inflammation. Sardines offer all of those in one humble, affordable can, and unlike pills, which can sometimes cause constipation or kidney issues in high doses, food-based nutrients are gentle, balanced, and easier for the body to process. How I made it a lifelong habit now. Sardines are a regular part of my weekly routine, but I'm not rigid. Some weeks I'll only have them once, and other weeks I'll find creative new ways to include them. I've even gotten a few friends to try them, and they're surprised at how tasty they can be when prepared well. Sometimes I have them for lunch on rye bread. Sometimes I toss them into a soup for added richness. they'd become less of a chore and more of a celebration. A quiet way I tell my body, I'm still taking care of you. And that's the mindset I want to pass along to anyone watching. Final thoughts on this bone-strengthening food. Sardines may not be the most glamorous food out there, but for me, they were the first big step toward rebuilding my strength from the inside out. They reminded me that the right food, even something small and unexpected, can have a big impact when you're consistent. I didn't have to spend a fortune. I didn't need fancy supplements. I just needed the willingness to try something new and give my bones what they were really craving. Coming up next, in the next section, I'll share how one simple addition to my meals not only helped my bone strength, but also soothed my aching joints, making it easier to move freely again. And it's something you probably already have in your pantry. This simple addition made my joints happier too after I started regularly including sardines in my meals. I noticed something unexpected. Not only were my bones feeling sturdier, but the morning stiffness in my knees and shoulders was slowly easing. I could roll out of bed without bracing myself. I could reach for the top shelf in my pantry without wincing. It made me wonder, was this just the sardines working their magic? Or was there more I could be doing for my joints as well as my bones? So, I went back to my research, talked to a local nutritionist, and started experimenting in the kitchen again. What I found changed everything about how I planned my meals from then on. The overlooked power of leafy greens, the food that made the biggest difference for my joints and, surprisingly, also gave a strong boost to my bones, was one I had almost completely ignored after retirement. Leafy green vegetables. Now I know what you're thinking. Leafy greens? Really? That's not exactly exciting. Believe me, I thought the same thing. But once I started eating more spinach, kale, collard greens, and arugula, I noticed improvements in ways I didn't expect. Not only did my joints move more smoothly, but I started feeling lighter, stronger, and even a bit more energized. Here's what I learned. Leafy greens aren't just healthy. They're a bone-protecting powerhouse that can reduce inflammation and fill in nutrient gaps we don't even know we have. The nutrients hiding in leafy greens. I used to think calcium came only from milk and cheese. That's what most of us were told growing up. But I learned that many leafy greens contain even more calcium per calorie than dairy, and they bring a lot of bonus nutrients too. Let me break it down. Calcium, especially high in collard greens, turnip greens, and bok choy. Vitamin K1, essential for bone metabolism and reducing fracture risk. Magnesium helps activate vitamin D and regulates calcium-potassium, balances acidity in the body, which can otherwise lead to calcium loss. Antioxidants reduce oxidative stress that contributes to bone and joint degradation. That in a bowl of salad or a quick The surprising link between inflammation and weak bones. One of the biggest things I discovered was that chronic inflammation doesn't just make joints ache, it also eats away at bone tissue over time. When inflammation is high, the body breaks down bone faster than it can rebuild. So reducing inflammation through food became just as important as getting enough calcium. Leafy greens are among the most anti-inflammatory foods on earth. They're packed with compounds that naturally calm the immune system and soothe the body from the inside out. How I started? Including more greens without boredom, I'll admit. When I first thought of eating more greens, I imagined boring bowls of lettuce. But I quickly found that leafy greens can be delicious, versatile, and even comforting if you prepare them the right way. Here's how I made them a regular part of my routine. 1. Morning green smoothie. This was a game changer. I toss a handful of spinach into my blender with a banana, some frozen berries, Greek yogurt, and almond milk. It's quick, easy, and tastes like dessert. I don't even notice the greens, but my bones do. 2. Spinach in soups and stews. Whenever I make lentil soup, chicken stew, or even a simple vegetable broth, I toss in a couple handfuls of kale or spagna at the end. They wilt beautifully and blend in with everything else. 3. Sautéed collard greens with garlic and olive oil. This became one of my go-to sides. A quick saute in olive oil with chopped garlic and a pinch of sea salt. Sometimes I add a splash of apple cider vinegar or lemon for brightness. It's warm, savory, and satisfying. For mixed greens, salads with seeds and nuts stew make salads more interesting. I started adding pumpkin seeds, walnuts, sliced almonds, and sometimes goat cheese. With a homemade olive oil vinaigrette, became something I looked forward to, not a chore. How greens helped my joints feel younger after about 4 weeks of including leafy greens in at least one meal a day. I noticed my knees didn't crack as loudly when I bent down. My shoulders, which always felt tight in the morning, began to feel looser and more mobile. Even my fingers, which had begun to feel stiff while writing or holding a mug, felt more flexible. I realized it wasn't just the joints themselves. It was the reduced inflammation and the improved hydration in my body from eating more water-dense foods like spinach and arugula, and I wasn't imagining it. I later read a study that showed seniors who consumed higher levels of vitamin K1 from leafy greens had fewer bone fractures and less cartilage loss. The emotional shift, feeling capable against something else, happened to something I didn't expect. I started to feel proud of what I was putting into my body. Every bite of greens felt like an act of self-respect. Like I was saying, you still matter. You're still worth taking care of. That mindset shift was huge. Because once you start seeing food as a form of self-care, you stop seeing it as a punishment or a restriction and start seeing it as a blessing. Tips for seniors struggling with taste or digestion. If you're someone who says, "I just don't like greens," or "they upset my stomach," don't worry, I was there too. Here are a few tips that helped me. Start small. Add just a handful to whatever you're already eating. Cook them lightly. Light sautéing or steaming makes them easier to digest. Pair them with healthy fats. Olive oil or avocado helps absorb fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin K. Add flavor. Don't be afraid to use garlic, ginger, vinegar, or a pinch of sea salt. It's not about eating mountains of kale. It's about consistently including just a little more every day. My weekly greens routine, simple and sustainable. To keep things easy, I now buy a big container of pre-washed greens at the start of the week. I use it in 2 smoothies, 3 lunches, salads or wraps to dinners, stir-fry or soup. That's 7 to 8 servings of greens a week, and it's made a noticeable difference in my bone and joint health. Final thoughts on leafy greens and aging bones. If sardines were the food that built my strength, leafy greens were the food that restored my flexibility. They don't just help your bones stay dense, they protect your joints, ease inflammation, and keep your whole body moving freely. And at this stage of life, that kind of freedom is priceless. Coming up next, in the next section, I'll share the most surprising bone-boosting food I already had in my kitchen, one that you might be using daily without even realizing its power. The surprising bone booster already in my kitchen by the time I had added sardines and leafy greens into my regular meals. I was already feeling the benefits, more energy, fewer joint aches, and just an overall sense of strength that I hadn't felt in years. But then something strange happened. I was organizing my spice rack one afternoon, clearing out old jars and tins, when I paused in front of something I had used all my life, but never thought of as anything more than a flavor enhancer. Sesame seeds. Yes, tiny, humble sesame seeds. They sat there in a little glass container, usually reserved for sprinkling over bread or the occasional stir-fry, but something about them caught my attention. I remembered once reading that seeds were full of nutrients, so I decided to dig a little deeper. What I discovered absolutely floored me. The hidden calcium power of sesame seeds. Where told to drink milk for calcium, that's what most of us grew up believing. But 1 tablespoon of sesame seeds contains nearly 90 milligrams of calcium. That's almost as much as a third of a cup of milk. But that's just the start. Sesame seeds are packed with calcium for bone structure and strength. Magnesium, which helps regulate calcium, and vitamin D. Phosphorus, a key player in bone tissue formation. Zinc supports bone mineral density and healing. Copper, important for collagen production in bones. Healthy fats, for better absorption of fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin D and K. And, unlike many dairy sources, sesame seeds are non-inflammatory, lactose-free, easy to store, and use. Delicious when prepared right. I couldn't believe this small, unassuming seed had been hiding in my kitchen for years, and I had completely overlooked its power. Why? I switched to tahini and never looked back. I wasn't about to start chewing spoonfuls of sesame seeds every day. That didn't seem practical. That's when I discovered tahini, a creamy paste made from ground sesame seeds. That it became my new obsession. Tahini is easy to digest, versatile. You can use it in both savory and sweet dishes. Concentrated with nutrients, just 2 tablespoons. Gives over 120 milligrams of calcium. I started adding tahini to salad dressings. Just mix with lemon juice, garlic, and a splash of olive oil. Morning toast instead of butter or nut butters. Smoothies, 1 spoon for creaminess and calcium boost. Roasted veggies, drizzle on top for added flavor. Homemade hummus, my go-to snack with cucumbers and carrots. It became a delicious way to support my bones without feeling like I was dieting. What I noticed after 30 days adding tahini and sesame seeds into my weekly meals felt effortless, and within a few weeks, I noticed subtle but powerful changes. My nails became harder, a sign of stronger calcium metabolism. My digestion improved, no bloating like I used to get with calcium pills. I felt fuller longer, which helped me manage my weight. I started sleeping better, thanks to magnesium and healthy fats. My skin even looked healthier, which was a surprise bonus. It's amazing how a small seed could contribute to such big changes. Sesame seeds versus supplements. What I learned before all this, I relied on calcium supplements because they seemed like a convenient option, but my body didn't seem to absorb them well. I had stomach discomfort, and my doctor mentioned that too much isolated calcium could actually build up in the arteries instead of the bones. Sesame seeds, on the other hand, offered a natural, food-based source of bone nutrition that my body responded to easily. Here's a quick comparison. I made Aspect Calcium Supplement Sesame Seeds, Tahini Calcium Source Synthetic Isolated Whole Food. Natural absorption, often poor without other nutrients. High, contains magnesium, fat, phosphorus. Side effects, possible constipation, calcification. Risk, gentle, easy to digest. Additional nutrients, usually minimal magnesium, zinc, copper, fiber, vitamins. Cost, recurring purchases, affordable and long-lasting. Thoughts. When I decided if I could get more benefit from food, Why rely on pills at all? Cultural wisdom. We forgot. One thing that really struck me was how sesame has been used for thousands of years in cultures all over the world. In Middle Eastern diets, tahini is a staple in Asian cuisines. Sesame seeds are toasted and sprinkled on nearly everything. In Ayurvedic medicine, sesame oil is considered a healing tonic even in ancient Egypt. Sesame was valued for vitality and strength somehow. In our modern Western diets, we forgot about these traditional, nutrient-rich foods and traded them for pills and packaged products. Reintroducing sesame into my meals felt like reconnecting with something ancient and wise. Easy ways I use sesame every week. Here's what my weekly sesame routine looks like. Now, breakfast. Add a teaspoon of tahini to my smoothie or spread it on a whole grain waffle. Lunch. Toss a spoonful of tahini into my salad dressing with lemon plus garlic. Sprinkle toasted sesame seeds over my greens or roasted vegetables. Snack. Raw veggies with hummus, store-bought, or homemade dinner. Stir sesame seeds into rice or quinoa. Use sesame oil for light sautéing of greens or tofu with so many options. It's never boring, and I know I'm giving my bones the tools they need to stay strong and resilient, a food you already have. Now with new purpose. That's the beauty of this one. You probably already have sesame seeds or tahini in your pantry. And now, you know it's more than just garnish. It's a bone-saving superfood. The key is to use it with intention. Every time I add tahini to my lunch or sprinkle seeds over my dinner, I think to myself, this is nourishment. This is strength. And over time, that mindset, along with the nutrients, has made me feel younger, more in control, and more hopeful about my health. Final thoughts on this bone booster. I never would have guessed that one of the most powerful, bone-supporting foods was already sitting in my kitchen. But once I started using sesame seeds regularly, especially in the form of tahini, my bones, joints, digestion, and even my energy responded with a quiet but steady thank you. It's these kinds of simple, overlooked foods that make the biggest difference. Not fads, not magic pills, but real nourishment from real ingredients. Coming up next. In the next section, I'll reveal what I eat every single morning. A food that helps build bone density while keeping my energy high all day. It's delicious, comforting, and so easy to make. I never skip it. What I eat every morning for stronger bones? If someone asked me today what one meal I refuse to skip, no matter what, it would be breakfast. But it wasn't always like that. In my younger years, I often skipped breakfast or grabbed something sugary and rushed, like cereal or toast. I thought energy bars and orange juice were healthy enough. What I didn't realize was that I was missing a golden opportunity each morning to feed the one system of my body that needed it the most. As I aged my bones, that realization came after my bone density started declining. I'd been adding sardines and leafy greens, and even started sneaking in sesame tahini, but I still felt like something was off. My energy would crash around noon, and I didn't feel as grounded or strong as I expected. Then one day, during a podcast with a holistic nutritionist, I heard her say, "Your first meal of the day sets the tone for your bones." That line hit me like a wake-up call. The morning bone-building ritual I never miss. Went back to the basics and built a breakfast that wasn't just good tasting, but purposeful. A meal that was high in bone-supporting nutrients, anti-inflammatory, and kept me full for hours. That meal is what I now call my bone builder bowl. And let me tell you, it has become the highlight of my mornings. It's simple, powerful, and built around a true superfood that many seniors overlook. Oats. Why oats deserve a place on your bone health plate at first glance. Oats may not seem like a bone food, but once I started digging deeper, I realized oats are more than just a comfort food. They're actually a nutritional powerhouse, especially when paired with the right ingredients. Here's what oats bring to the table. Magnesium helps activate vitamin D and regulate calcium. Phosphorus, critical for bone formation. Silicon, a lesser-known mineral that promotes bone mineral density. Plant-based protein supports collagen production in bones, slow-releasing carbohydrates. Stable energy to stay active and mobile. And beyond that, oats are gentle on digestion, incredibly versatile, and cheap. Once I learned all that, I knew I had to make oats the star of my breakfast. What I add to make it even more powerful now? Plain oats are great, but what makes my morning bone build bowl truly special is what I mix into it. Here's what goes into my bowl and why each item is there. 1. Rolled oats, 1/2 cup cooked with water or fortified almond milk for extra calcium. Provides the base minerals, fiber, and energy I need. 2 chia seeds, 1 TBSP, tiny seeds packed with omega-3 south, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. These help reduce inflammation and support bone formation. 3. Sliced banana or berry provide potassium, which helps prevent calcium loss. Berries bring antioxidants that reduce oxidative stress on bones. 4. Almond butter or tahini, 1 TBSP, just like in my lunches. This brings in healthy fats, vitamin E, and calcium. Plus, it keeps me full longer. 5. A sprinkle of cinnamon, anti-inflammatory, and adds warmth and flavor without needing sugar. Sometimes I top it with crushed walnuts or a handful of pumpkin seeds, both of which bring in zinc and healthy fat for stronger bones. That's how it changed my mornings and my bones when I began eating this bowl every day. I didn't expect much at first. I just hoped I'd stop crashing before lunch, but within 2 weeks, I noticed. My energy lasted from morning into the afternoon, my stomach felt more settled and regular, I had less swelling in my joints and ankles, and most importantly, I felt stronger on my feet, especially after morning walks one day. I realized I was climbing the stairs at the community center without holding the rail. That hadn't happened in months. What the science says about bone-friendly breakfast says, I dove deeper into research. I found I wasn't alone. Studies show that older adults who eat magnesium-rich breakfasts have higher bone mineral density than those who skip or eat sugary cereals. Plus, eating within 90 minutes of waking helps regulate cortisol, the stress hormone that when chronically elevated can lead to bone loss. In short, your breakfast affects your bones more than you think. That's why skipping it or filling up on empty calories is something I now avoid completely, making the habit stick even when I'm busy. Life doesn't slow down just because we're getting older. I still have errands, doctor appointments, and family calls like anyone else. So I found a few ways to make sure my bone builder bowl fits into even the busiest mornings. Overnight oats. I mix the ingredients the night before in a jar, then grab it from the fridge in the morning. It's cold, creamy, and ready to go. Instant pot option. Sometimes I cook a big batch of steel-cut oats and portion it into containers for the week. Travel jarif. I'm heading out early. I make my bowl in a mason jar with a tight lid and take it with me. A spoon, and I'm good to go. More than just a meal. A morning mindset. What surprised me most was not just how good this breakfast made me feel, but how it set the tone for my entire day. By 8 a.m., I had already given my bones a dose of strength, supported my joints, balanced my blood sugar, and reminded myself that I still matter. It may sound silly, but this breakfast has become more than just food. It's a signal to myself that I'm not giving up on my body, no matter my age. Encouragement. For those who don't like healthy food, if you're someone who thinks oatmeal is boring or tasteless, I completely understand. I used to feel the same way, but this isn't bland mush. It's a bowl of warmth, flavor, and nutrients that you can customize however you like. Add cocoa powder, nutmeg, chopped dates, coconut flakes, anything that makes it feel like a treat. The key is consistency. Bone health isn't built in, a diet's built bite by bite, day by day. Final thoughts on the power of breakfast. I used to think of breakfast as optional. Now, I think of it as bone fuel, the most important step in my morning routine. This simple, affordable bowl has helped me rebuild strength, improve balance, and feel like I'm nourishing myself from the inside out. And that's a feeling worth waking up for. Coming up next. In the final section, I'll share the surprising snack that replaced my calcium pills, and how it's helped me naturally improve absorption and build stronger bones without the side effects of supplements. The snack that replaced my calcium pills for years. I kept a bottle of calcium tablets right next to my toothbrush. It was part of my routine. Wake up, brush my teeth, take my pill with a glass of water, and hope it was doing what the label promised, keeping my bones strong. But something always felt off. I didn't feel any different. I sometimes got mild stomach discomfort. And once, a doctor mentioned that too much supplemental calcium could build up in soft tissues like arteries if not properly balanced with other nutrients. That really made me pause. So when I started changing my lifestyle to strengthen my aging bones, adding sardines, leafy greens, tahini, and a bone-fueling breakfast, I began asking myself, what if I could get the same calcium, but from real food? That's when I discovered the snack that changed everything. The unsung hero. Almonds. Of all the foods I now rely on to support my bones, almonds are one of the most surprising and most powerful. Almonds are more than just a crunchy snack. They are a complete bone-supporting package. And once I replaced my calcium pills with a daily handful of almonds, I began noticing real changes. I no longer had bloating. My energy remained more stable throughout the afternoon, and for the first time in a long time, my nails and teeth actually felt stronger. Why almonds work wonders for bone health here. Why almonds earned a permanent place in my daily routine. Calcium. 1 ounce, about 23 almonds, gives you around 75 to 80 milligrams of calcium, and it's food-based, which means better absorption. Magnesium, critical for converting vitamin D into its active form. Phosphorus helps build and repair bones and teeth. Healthy fats help your body absorb vitamins D and K. Protein, important for bone matrix strength. Vitamin E, an antioxidant that reduces oxidative stress in bones. And like calcium supplements that isolate one mineral, almonds deliver all these nutrients together in the way nature intended. My almond habit. How I make it delicious. I didn't just start popping dry almonds into my mouth. I made it something to enjoy, a moment in my day I looked forward to. Here's how. I regularly enjoy almonds. Mid-morning trail mix. I mix raw almonds, pumpkin seeds, great for zinc, dried cranberries or raisins, a little sweetness, unsweetened, coconut flakes. This mix is energizing, satisfying, and loaded with bone-friendly nutrients. Afternoon snack. Plate. I slice an apple or pear and pair it with 10 to 12 almonds, A small square of dark chocolate, 70% or more. A sprinkle of cinnamon. It's like dessert, but supports my bones instead of breaking them down with sugar. Crushed almond topping. I keep a jar of lightly toasted crushed almonds and sprinkle it over salads, roasted vegetables, even oatmeal in the morning. It adds a satisfying crunch and a big nutrient boost. Soaking almonds, my secret trick. When I first started eating almonds regularly, I found them a little hard to chew, especially early in the morning or when my jaw felt tight. Then someone suggested soaking them overnight. It changed everything. Soaking almonds makes them softer and easier to chew, reduces phytic acid, which can interfere with mineral absorption, improves digestion and taste. They become creamy and sweet now. Every night, I soak 10 to 12 almonds in a small bowl of water. The next morning, I peel them. The skin slides off easily, and enjoy them plain or in ASMOOTHIE. It's a small ritual that feels both nurturing and nourishing. What I noticed after replacing pills with almonds within a few weeks of making almonds, my go-to source of calcium, I noticed. My digestion was smoother and more regular. My teeth and gums felt less sensitive. I had better satiety. Less snacking between meals. I no longer dreaded taking pills because there were none to take. Even my doctor noticed a small improvement in my blood calcium and magnesium levels. But more importantly, I felt better, more grounded, more stable, more alive. The emotional shift, from pill taker to nourisher. One thing I didn't expect was how much more empowered I felt eating my nutrients instead of swallowing them. There's a quiet dignity in choosing real whole foods, especially when they come from the earth, are minimally processed, and offer so much value in every bite. Every time I eat almonds now, I think, this is my body's medicine. This is strength from the inside. That mindset changed everything. A word on balance, almonds plus hydration plus movement. Of course, almonds aren't magic on their own. I also make sure to drink plenty of water. Bones are 31% water. Stay active, walking, light stretching, and lifting small weights. Get sunlight for natural vitamin D together. These habits form a foundation for strong, resilient bones. But it's the almonds and the idea of snacking with intention that anchored it all. Tips for getting started with almonds. If you want to make almonds part of your bone health journey, here are a few simple tips. Start with 10 to 12 per day. Soak overnight for better digestion. Pair with fruit, yogurt, or veggies. Try almond butter with no added sugar, on toast, or in smoothies. Store in a cool, dry place to preserve nutrients. And remember, it's not about perfection. Some days I forget, or I run out, and that's okay. But the key is consistency over time. That's how bones are built, one bite at a time. Final thoughts on my bone strengthening snack. When I first began this journey, I thought strengthening bones after 60 would require expensive supplements or painful treatments, but the truth is far simpler and more beautiful. The strength I feel today didn't come from a bottle. It came from simple, nourishing choices like almonds made with care, curiosity, and commitment. Almonds replaced my pills, but they also replaced something else. The quiet fear I used to carry about becoming frail, dependent, or broken. Now, I feel in control. I feel proud of how I care for myself. And I know that every handful of almonds is a vote for my own vitality. Wrapping up what you can do today. If you've watched thus far, I want to thank you. Your bones and your future self will thank you. 2.2 Recap. These are the top 5 foods that strengthen my aging bones. Sardines, for natural calcium, vitamin D, and omega-3s leafy greens. 4 Vitamin K, magnesium and anti-inflammatory support. Sesame seeds, tahini for concentrated calcium and absorption-boosting minerals. Oats plus superfoods to fuel your day and lay the mineral foundation. Almonds, the snack that replaced my calcium pills and brought balance. These aren't fads. They're foods that have stood the test of time, backed by tradition and science. Start small, pick one, make it a habit, then build from there. Your bones are listening, they're ready, and now, so are you.